Hello, and welcome to this special edition of the Thrive for Life Live. And tonight we are talking to the co authors of the Made for More Physician Entrepreneurs who live life and practice medicine on their own terms. I am so excited because I have four phenomenal coaches here who are also part of my co-authors. They are amazing. So let's get to know our panelists this evening. So we have Dr. Joanna Moore. She wrote chapter 34, which is Take Control of Your Own Life. Dr. Moore is a triple board certified physician leader, success coach, and founder of She Is Money, where she helps successful women achieve the goals that finally make life fulfilling. So welcome, Dr. Moore. It's so good to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure, and it was so fun writing the book with all these other amazing women.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. It was a lot of fun writing with you guys. And our next panelist is Dr. Erin Mayfield. She wrote chapter 32, Why Start a New Business in Your 60s? Dr. Mayfield is a board certified life medicine physician and gynecologist and a certified Harvard chef coach. So she's the one we need to learn how to cook from because she was great. She's also the founder and CEO of Lifestyle Medicine, Wellness, and Recovery, LLC. She's passionate about working with patients as a team to support them in their transition to a whole plant-centered eating, improving fitness, and stress management. Welcome, 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 Dr. Mayfield. It's so good to have you.
Oh my goodness, thank you, Dr. Shelley. This is such a great evening for me. Fabulous idea that you had to have panels like this. We're just thrilled to be here and looking forward to learning about everyone's story. So thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much. I know we're having a little bit of a technical issue. You were going in and out with your mic there. But I did hear the end part of what you said. There we go. There we go. Got you. Okay. Thank you very much. And our next coach. I'm sorry. Okay. Our next coach is Dr. Elissa Chang. Her chapter was 36, Belief in Self-Identity. Dr. Elissa Chang is an ophthalmologist and oculoplastic surgeon and life coach. She works with physicians to help them gain confidence around money and investing so that they can build their path to financial freedom while enjoying the journey along the way. Welcome, welcome, Dr. Chang. It's good to have you.
Thank you. It's actually pronounced Elissa Jong.
Oh, John. Okay, sorry. Elissa John. Thank you. Thank you.
Yep.
So Elissa John. Anything else you wanted to do to introduce? Now?
Yeah, no. So my chapter is really about identity and being an entrepreneur and that change in identity. And I think that's something that I think all of us when we enter the entrepreneurial space is something we have to kind of identify and deal with.
Yes, excellent. Yes, and it is important, and we're going to get deep into that today to talk more about that identity. Dr. Rashmi Shram, she is a board-certified family physician and national board-certified integrative health coach. She's also a certified meditation and Ayurveda teacher, and she's the founder of Optimal Wellness, a coaching platform rooted in neuroscience and one that supercharges coaching with meditation. She also is the author of chapter 39, which is Uncertainty Holds Infinite Potential. So welcome, Dr. Shram. It's so good to have you as well.
Dr. Shelley, it is my absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, let's get down to it. So we're going to start with you, Dr. Joanna. You talk about leaving your employed job and starting your corporation and coaching business. Can you talk about how you did that and what were some of the obstacles and things that you faced along the way?
Absolutely. I think that I speak for a lot of people out there in medicine when I say that you work so hard for so many years to get into your actual job. And then you finally start practicing and you realize that it's not all rainbows and daisies and unicorns. And there are a lot of things that maybe you didn't expect to find out in the real world. And for me, I continuously kept moving around and trying to please other people, my bosses, my other colleagues, other physicians in the area. As you said, I'm a pathologist. So a lot of it was not direct contact with other patients, but more direct contact with other physicians. And eventually I realized that the reason why I wasn't happy was not because of all those other things that I was trying to get away from. It was because I was really not clear what was supposed to make me happy. And I had some sort of vision of what medicine was supposed to be like and what my job was supposed to be like. And it wasn't really very clear to me in the end. It was just this kind of like imaginary fantasy world of what medicine was like. And I think that when you're in residency, you think about, oh, I'm finally going to be able to work 9 to 5. I'm finally going to be able to be in charge of other people and tell other people to do things that I don't want them to do, that I don't want to do. And that all of a sudden have so much more money. And I think that when you finally get into the real world, you realize that you still have all of those things that you have to do. And I think that for me, I realized that the amount of leadership and power and the amount of choices that I had were really limited by the system that I was within. And whether you're in a hospital system or whether you're with a group of people, you may feel similarly. And I felt like the only way for me to really take my power back was to be brave enough to come up with my own corporation. And that was really my first step when I switched from being an employee to being in my own corporation and being able to contract with different hospitals and different people that, I may not have had the opportunity to contract with before.
That's wonderful. I love how you made that transition and realizing that, hey, what do I like? What is important to me? And then realizing that this entrepreneurial journey was important to you as well. Dr. Mayfield, you also made some transitions as well. You talk about in your chapter how tearing your rotator cuff changed how you practice medicine. Explain kind of how that happened and what came out of that experience.
Oh gosh, well, I'd be happy to. So I was an OBGYN in the Covington, Georgia area for almost 30 years. My husband and I relocated to Pensacola, Florida in 2018, and it took forever to process my medical license for Florida. So the same week that my license was approved, I fell while we were hiking in the woods, and that's when I completely tore my right rotator cuff. So obviously I lost my job. And I had plenty of time to sit and read. And that's when I discovered this newly organized medical specialty called lifestyle medicine and absolutely fell in love with it because I've always loved preventative medicine and I always loved doing the GYN exams for women because we'd tackle all of those issues. When they came in, we talked about stress, sleep, inability to lose weight, lack of exercise, nutrition, calorie counts, fat grams, all of that we tackled at the annual exam. And I felt like that counseling was not really working most of the time. So you can counsel women and talk and create a plan of action, but if you just hand them a piece of paper and they walk out the door without support, they really don't have a way to put that into action and to have someone to fall back on to guide them through the journey. So when I did the lifestyle medicine curriculum, that's when I had a big aha moment. And that was learning about the modern coaching methods that we have to support people in their journey and to have realistic expectations about how that happens. So that's what drove me to start a brand new medical practice in my 60s. Instead of retiring, I was having fun, sunning by the pool and enjoying Florida weather, but this is such critical information. I just couldn't sit at home. I had to do this. So that was it.
I love it. I love it. And sometimes the unexpected things that happen is something that kind of opens up a totally new avenue, a totally new world for you. And had you not had that happen, you would not have found lifestyle medicine and how you can live into your zone of genius by helping and supporting your women. So that's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. It was great. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And Dr. Alyssa, in 2020, you made that transition from employed practice to life coaching. What kind of led that decision for you, and what obstacles did you face during that transition?
Yeah, so I was doing 24/7 call as an oculoplastic specialist as a level 1 trauma center, which is already kind of a recipe for burnout. And in all honesty, I took the job knowing that that was the case. The hospital did have residents, so that, you know, my thought was that I would not really have to like go in very often. But unfortunately, my direct supervisor had other ideas. She expected a level of service that was beyond what I actually even had to do when I was a fellow on call. So it didn't make sense. And just the lack of voice, lack of autonomy, COVID definitely made it worse. You know, when I operate on patients, like, you know, surgery is an hour and a half, and I'm, you know, 1.5 feet away from their breathing and their whole face is open. And my hospital was not testing patients for COVID. I'm doing like elective surgery. I did have one patient who came in for his post-op visit, you know, giving all these symptoms, and he thought it was from the anesthesia, but they were very much COVID symptoms. We got him tested in the clinic. He was positive. And so I know that I was basically exposed to COVID for an hour and a half. Now I was wearing a mask, and I thankfully did not catch COVID, but just those kind of things that, you know, when I brought it up to the hospital system, like, they're like, well, this is what the committee decided. And it's like, great, well, do I even get to say anything to the committee? I don't even know who's on the committee, right? So, and unfortunately, this is the way hospitals gone, or the healthcare system has really gone. We've I think as physicians really lost control. I mean, I don't know, like, honestly, I have no idea who was on that committee, but I'm sure there must have been at least one physician, but you know, how many, yeah, like, so at any point, 2020 is also when I discovered coaching for physicians. Now, I mean, I think most people have heard of coaches for you know, sports, definitely, or even like executive coaches, you know, coaches for people like CEOs and CFOs, like the C-suite and in business. There are definitely other industries where, you know, coaching is kind of a very, quote, normal thing to have. But in the physician world, I had never heard of coaching until 2020. And I can definitely say that a lot of my colleagues, physicians, like, they still haven't heard of coaching. Like, I'm the first person who might ever mention coaching to them. But coaching really changed my mindset and thinking about what it was like, you know, what was possible for me. And then it was in 2021 where I left that hospital and went back to a private practice setting, and really, you know, made the decision that I'm not going to put up with a certain level of crap, right? Like, you know, financially, I can be okay for quite some time and figure it out, and that's what I've done. And that's what I help other people do now as well, other physicians, right? Like, you know, a lot of, I mean, at least I myself, part of going into the field of medicine was thinking that this is a safe and secure job. Mm-hmm. I graduated undergrad in 2001, right after the big tech boom. So the year before me, you know, people were graduating, we're all getting, you know, 6-figure incomes, like, you know, in programming and tech fields. And then my year, like, you know, we were barely getting job offers. And, you know, so that really, I think, even shaped me back then. I was like, okay, well, I think I'm going to go medicine. That, you know, there's always that need for doctors. And then we found out from the pandemic, yeah, we're in a medical crisis and doctors getting furloughed and laid off. Or I had a friend who's working but not getting paid. Like, and so we, you know, I think it's a time where we physicians, we can't wait for someone else the system to get fixed, or, you know, we got to save ourselves essentially.
No, you're absolutely right. I think the pandemic kind of opened up, you know, people's eyes that, oh, this is not secure. You know, you think you've been, you know, loyal to this particular hospital, and guess what? You can be gone just like that. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Dr. Rashmi, you mentioned that when you decided to start your own business, you were afraid and worried about the uncertainty of starting your own business. How did you deal with that fear? I'm sorry. And you said, you mentioned you would go to deal with that fear. You went on exotic vacations, planning busy weekends. How did you finally overcome that fear of starting your own business?
Yeah, I thank you for asking that question. I am really enjoying this entire discussion, actually. So, really, I think most of us can spend a good deal of our time distracting ourselves from whatever it is that we are trying to be distracted from. And I was no different than that. What was different was that I started to have a different level of awareness of, okay, well, I'm not my thoughts. I'm not these patterns of thoughts that I've had for an entirety of my life. And when we look at anything that's new, right? And this isn't just about me, but it's about all human brains. We want certainty. We want predictability. Like we have these prediction machines for our brains. And even if we can predict the worst case scenario, we'd rather have the worst case scenario and know that it's going to happen rather than infinite possibilities. And so it's over the years of just my meditation teacher training, which I talk a lot about. When I first started kind of enrolling in some of my meditation teacher trainings a decade or so ago, it was never because I thought I was actually going to teach meditation. It was a lot about I needed the community, I needed the accountability, and I wanted the deep dive into some of not just the science, but also some of the spirituality behind it. And so it was just a matter of being able to apply some of those things that I was learning, not just about meditation, but mindset. Because meditation is, at the end of the day, not about the actual meditation itself. It's about how are we skillfully moving through life. And I think that was a good life lesson. I mean, life never stops giving us lessons. So to answer your question, it was just that, as uncomfortable as it is, turning towards the fear, turning towards the constriction rather than distracting ourselves is actually where the answers are. And so once I started to become comfortable in the discomfort, then that's when infinite possibilities start to open up. And this is some of the most helpful stuff that I've been able to, kind of like live through and continue to live through. Because guess what? Life never stops giving us these lessons as I do my group coaching and my one-on-one coaching as well. And so just being able to just be present for whatever is here is, I think, one of the most powerful things we can practice.
Yeah, no, I love that. Just being present. And I love how you said kind of turn towards that fear. Instead of distract yourself, just face it head on, head on. Dr. Mayfield, you mentioned that one of the fears or one of the obstacles you had was the negative thoughts, thinking, oh, I can't do this, I'm too old. How did you change that negative mindset to a positive thoughts? How did that work out for you?
Oh, well, thank you for asking. It took a while. I listened to Dr. Una's podcast for probably 6 or 9 months before I joined the business school. And the more I listened, the fewer thoughts I had. I mean, the less those recurring thoughts came back. But it was a daily conversation. And then once I joined the business school, it just little by little, it almost went away. And I really had a huge turning point when I joined Dr. Rashmi's Optimal Wellness coaching class. And I've heard other people talk about their mean girl. Other coaches have talked about their mean girl. And I realized I had one of those too. And I had this horrible, paralyzing fear of public speaking. And as some of my sweet colleagues in EBS invited me to come on their podcast, I would have a panic attack within 3 minutes of us going live. And this voice would come back and say, run. You can make up an excuse. They'll understand if you have a headache or if you feel bad or if your dog just had a cardiac arrest it would do that, right? So then all of a sudden it hit me when I was working with Dr. Rashmi that yes, I did have this mean girl, and that was the voice that kept coming up. And Rashmi encouraged us to name that person along with Dr. Una. She has her own too. So I decided to call her Piggy, because Piggy was piggy about my feelings. Piggy was selfish about my time. And Piggy was getting in the way of starting my new practice and reaching out to my new community, getting to know people, generating trust, creating name recognition. So Piggy was just really in the way. And it was because of Dr. Rashmi's course and working through that with her coaching that I really was able to tackle that and move on. So it took a while. It probably took a year to tackle that and just move it aside and not let Piggy interfere with my life.
Do you still sometimes even have Piggy that comes back, or is she completely gone? She's completely evicted at this point.
Probably 98%.
98%. I think
The work is too important. You know, the information is too important. The work is too critical. I can't let that get in the way. And I have had other professional speaking coaches after that, where I still had this paralyzing fear of talking or even thinking, getting up in front of a group. But really tackling Piggy was really it was a huge mountain to climb, and I came down the other side. And so I'm thrilled. It changed my life.
That's amazing. We have to tackle our Piggy. We have to tackle our inner mean girl.
Yes, exactly.
I love that. Well, Dr. Rashmi, in your chapter, you talk about pushing to the last moment, pushing to that last moment with your program, Ready to Thrive. What were some lessons that you learned from that launch, and what advice would you give to entrepreneurs who are expecting everything to go right for their programs, even if it doesn't seem like it's going to go right?
Oh man, this is such a good question, because it is a lesson that I have learned like 5, 6, 7 times. And I am still surprised that it applies years down the road, right? So pushing to the last minute was something I definitely learned in EBS, and I don't know that I would have done it otherwise, for sure. And it was something that I learned with my very first launch. And what I learned then was that, I had 50% of my people sign up in the last 12 hours of my program. And what has held true, literally, I've had multiple launches for my programs since then. What has held true is the minute I open something up, 1 or 2 people sign up right away because they were already waiting for me, which is amazing. It's fantastic. And now you can't back out, because now you're just like, oh man, do I really want to do this for the next 12 Tuesday nights? And as meaningful as it is, do I just want to do it for this one person? But of course you're going to do it for this one person, because that's why you're here. And then you have to get more people in, because it's helpful not just for you, but also this one person, because we learn from each other. And literally my last launch was just 2 months ago, and out of the 12 people that joined my the Power Within, which is what Dr. Aaron's talking about, literally 6 of them joined in the last 12 hours. I mean, and it had to have been a push. And each of them afterwards have said how transformational it has been, how incredible it's been for them, and how grateful they were that I followed up or pushed until the very end. And so it's a fallacy to think that you're going to have it nice and neat. There's nothing nice and neat about entrepreneurship. And there's definitely nothing nice and neat about launching any kind of group program. And it's messy, and it's going to take the form it's going to take. And it's our job to do our job and not to judge it for whatever we think it's going to happen.
I love that. I love that. Know that it's messy. It is messy. So speaking of messy, Dr. Joanna, you said in your chapter, you talk about the biggest hurdle for you was believing in yourself. Sometimes that can be messy. How did you overcome that mindset, and how did you start that belief that you could do it?
It's so amazing that after all these years being a successful woman, that I would think that I didn't believe in myself. And to a point, I think we all go around saying that we believe in ourselves, but when push comes to shove and you really have to be the only person responsible for where you go next, it's so important to believe that you can do it and to believe in what you're doing. And it's hard to do that, I think, especially as women and as physicians, because one of the things that we learn is to put ourselves last. And we learn that our emotions should get pushed down, because otherwise the person coding might not make it. and other, people should come first, our children, our husbands, our other colleagues that we work with, our team. Those people are more important than we are. And it's something that we are socialized with ever since we were born, really. And I think that we just take that information in, both from our own experiences through life, but also from the things that we're told from our attendings, from our parents, from all other people in our lives that that we trust, and we think that they know what they're talking about. And when it comes down to it, I think that none of us know what we're talking about. It's all just a big old mess. And so really the only person who can tell you what is right for you is you. There's nobody else who can run your life and who can thrive and to find the possibilities that only you are going to do in your life except you. And I think that on one side, that's really, really scary for us, that like, oh my gosh, I have to believe in myself because I have all this responsibility. But on the other hand, it's so freeing because you can't possibly mess it up. It's completely open to do. You get to do whatever it is that you ultimately want to do in your life. And that I think is the most exciting thing. And I think that's really what Made for More is about, is that you personally get to make up your own story and it gets to come true. Anything that you want, anything that you imagine, you can make it happen. And that's just so mind blowing to me. And I think that it was really mind blowing to me. I also learned from Dr. Schramm, and she taught me initially how to meditate. And I know just learning how to come into my own mind and just calm myself and really listen to what I had to say, what my real desires were, that was something that Dr. Schramm taught me. And that really was mind blowing to me, like just to sit in silence and to listen to what you really have to say, not what somebody else has to say or what you think other people want to hear from you. And that was so powerful. And the other really powerful thing that I learned along the way was when I learned how to coach, and the fact that like really you get to control what you think. And that goes back to what Dr. Mayfield was saying about, not having to deal with that mean person inside you. And that really ultimately, that's just a story that you're telling yourself about things around you. And that story is something that you get to change anytime you decide that you want to change that story.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. I love that. Like you control what you think. And speaking of that, Dr. Elissa, you mentioned too that when you started, the mindset of you were never popular, charismatic, not well known in any circles in medicine. You didn't have the connections that other people have, but you overcame that and that thought, and you were able to move forward. Can you maybe describe how that went for you? What did you do?
Yeah, I mean, it's a constant work, right? Like I still don't necessarily have the thought that I'm charismatic or people are drawn to me. But what I do have the thought is that there are people who are going to be attracted to working with me as opposed to other people, right? I am not the only physician money coach out there. There are several others. But my personality is different from those other people. And there are some people who are going to want to work with me who are, maybe not as attracted to working with the other people, or even maybe repelled by working with other people. And there are going to be some people who are repelled by what I say or the way, my personality is, or just not attracted. And it doesn't actually mean anything about me. It's just, not everyone clicks with each other, right? But that's okay. Having options and having different people all saying the same message, the message is going to sound different and resonate differently with different people. So.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that because you're right. Sometimes we take it so personal, right? We're like, oh, they don't like me. It's me. But no, everybody has a preference, and whether they're attracted to me or not. Would you mind sharing, Dr. Elissa, what was one of the biggest lessons that you've learned on this journey?
Wow, so many different lessons. How to choose what the biggest. I mean, one of it is that when it comes to entrepreneurship, there is no this is the path, right?
Mhm.
In medicine, there's kind of a path. You go to medical school, you go to residency, you go to fellowship, you do research, you get recommendation letters, like you network with people, you find out who's in the field. Like there's kind of a path that is pretty kind of laid out, right? And entrepreneurship, I mean, even if you want to get very specific into like, starting like, a life coaching business, it's like, okay, what niche do you choose? How do you choose it? Do you need to be, what we call your ideal client? Like, are you just a step ahead? Or could you teach someone something different from, what your background is because of your expertise? Do you do organic marketing or do you do Facebook ads? Do you start with groups, or are you doing one-to-one, and when do you transition to groups, or are you going to do a subscription service or a membership? I mean, there are so many different ways that different people have been successful, and there's also people who kind of quote do the same thing and may take longer to get there. And it is kind of persistence and constantly honing on your message, honing on what you're doing. I mean, you literally could think you're doing exact same thing as someone else and see that other person leap forward while you're kind of lagging behind. But the truth of it is you're not doing the same thing because your message is not exactly the same. The way you're talking is not the same. Who your audience is not the same. The people who resonate with you, it's just none of it's the same. And it's really just you've got to keep figuring it out for yourself. And there's not any one person. As much as we all love Dr. Una, like she doesn't necessarily have all the answers of how, like, you've got to figure out a lot of it for yourself. And when I say you, like, I mean all of us as entrepreneurs.
Oh yeah, I love that. So you got to make sure there's no right path. There's only the path that you're on. What are some of the other biggest lessons? I'm going to throw this out to the group. What are some of the other biggest lessons that you've learned on your journey?
Right. Just embrace the failure too, right? Because that's the other thing about medicine is that we're so afraid of failure. Like there's a sense of, we need to be perfect. We can't make mistakes. We don't want complications. And of course, we don't want to, have our patients be harmed in any way. But, when you're in business, like someone getting harmed, I mean, it's a whole different scale, right? I mean, what is failing, like looking at failure differently. I mean, you can even just think of like if you're planning on running a marathon, which is 26.2 miles, if the first day you go run, you only run 3 miles, then you kind of failed, right? You didn't run a marathon, but you don't think of that as failure. You just think, okay, I'm building it up. And that's the same thing. Like you got to build up your muscles and build up your skills. And there's sometimes where you're not going to get to the metric you want to get, but if you keep working on it, eventually you're going to get there. Eventually you're going to figure it out. So you only truly fail when you quit and you stop trying.
That's so true. You truly fail when you quit. So you got to keep going. Got to keep going. What are some other biggest lessons that you all have learned on your journey?
I'm just going to say something else and get just that mean girl type thing. Sometimes we talk to ourselves like worse than we would talk to our enemy or someone we dislike, right? Like that voice in our head, like we'll tell ourselves we're stupid. We don't know how to do this. How do we miss this? How do we forget this? Like, and just all the mean things. And if you think about it, like you would not say that out loud to any of your colleagues, to like literally to an enemy or someone you don't like, someone, I mean, you still wouldn't, you may even think it, but you wouldn't say it out loud, right? But you're telling it to yourself because, you don't have to say it out loud for you to hear it, right? So really just kind of identifying like, okay, let's have some self-compassion. If I wouldn't say this to any person out loud, then let's not say this to myself.
Yeah, so true. So true. I think Dr. Shrum, I saw you unmute.
I love this discussion so much, and you're absolutely right, Elisa. So, I think for me, one of the things I've learned over and over again, and I will probably continue to learn, is that consistency is always better than intensity when we're moving through business, because we are just the way that we're made as physicians. We're pretty intense people. You don't get into med school, you don't get through med school, you don't get through residency and all the other stuff without having some level of intensity and without being able to do a push. And so sometimes it's remembering that the consistency is really the key to being able to have a very, whether it's slow and steady, or fast, whatever that happens, but it's the consistency of showing up, the consistency of serving, and the consistency within our own mindset that we have to keep. So that's really what I'd have to add.
Yeah. Well, what about you, Dr. Joanna? What are the biggest lessons that you've learned?
How to unmute. Okay. So I completely agree with Dr. Schramm. I mean, consistency is so important. And one thing that I've learned over my experience is that it's really consistency over your own negative feelings. And I think one of the things that we all want to do our entire lives is to be happy and to not feel anything uncomfortable. But the thing is that humanity is partly uncomfortable. And the way that I really like to think about it is not like whether this thing makes me feel good, but more, even though it doesn't make me feel good, maybe it makes me feel stressed, or maybe it makes me feel agitated. Like if if that feeling is causing me to create actions that are resulting in what I want to happen, then it's okay. It's okay if you feel sad, if what you want to do is cry because you lost a loved one, or otherwise, like, you'd always feel happy and you'd never experience the full experience of what life is, and sometimes you won't get to where you really want to be. And I think that when I feel that discomfort, in whatever form it is, I always like to tell myself, I'm here for a reason and it's okay. And this will pass, and then I'll learn what it was for. But yeah, I think that that's really so important when you're trying to maintain that consistency, is to realize that it's not always going to be fun, and sometimes that's part of the journey.
Yeah, that's so true. Realizing it's not going to be fun and you're here for a reason and a purpose. Dr. Aaron, what was your biggest lessons that you've learned in this journey?
Oh, that's huge, actually. And I feel like everyone else does. It takes consistency. And for me, the fear is not worth it. It's just
Mm,
not worth being afraid. It, it takes too much energy, consumes too much personal energy. It takes away from life. It distracts you from the joy that you can have going out and doing these new things. And I have a slide that I'm showing now in my PowerPoints for my nutrition classes and cooking classes. At the very end, it's a puppy hiding under a chair. And what it reminds me of is how we all feel before we do something new. We're like the puppy hiding under the chair, and you put your toe out, and then you bring it back. And then you cut it back up, like, I don't know, that's kind of scary. And then you come out a little bit more. And then when you finally get out to enjoy what's out there, you realize how beautiful it is and how much fun you can have. So my takeaway is don't be the puppy under the chair.
ah, come on out and have fun. Have fun. My next question is, what do you all do on a daily basis to move your business forward? What are some of those just tasks or things that you make sure that you do to move your business forward on a daily basis? Let's see, Dr. Alyssa? Oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Joanna, you unmuted. Sorry about that.
I think that there are two things that are really important in anything that you do. And one is that you make sure that you are centered and that you can have a clear mind. And whatever you do in order to do that, there's so many different ways. I personally use meditation and journaling and coaching, all three of them, in order to get myself centered. The other thing is that you have to ask. I mean, I think most of we spend so much time on social media or preparing our content or reading and trying to learn more. And really, ultimately, you have to ask in order to get anywhere forward in your business. So those are the two most important things for me.
Mhm. And I think I saw you unmuted too, Dr. Schramm.
I love that answer, Dr. Moore. I wholeheartedly agree about meditation, as you know. And I think that is one of the things that I focus on for myself as well, which is what is the balance of finding some stillness with some action. And I think for many years, I was completely skewed in that. I was fully immersed in all things that were, just doing and not really anything that had to do with just being. And I think that was part of my burnout story, like most of us do. So it's really having an awareness of, and balance might not be the right word, because I know it can actually be a trigger word for many people. So I try not to say that word, but it is a semblance of, if it's a seesaw between, the doing and the being, where are we there? And ultimately, when we have awareness, it's creating actions that are aligned rather than just keeping busy. Because I can also stay very busy. I'm really good at that. And so when I find myself doing the busyness actions, it's coming back and asking, am I aligned with my goals? Is this going to get me where I need to go? Are these aligned with my strengths? So really simple questions that if we can ask those, that we can continue to take meaningful action and combine it with some amount of stillness.
That's great. I love that. Asking, are my actions aligned with the purpose or where I'm trying to go? I think, Dr. Lisa, I saw that you had unmuted too.
Actually, I hadn't. But yeah, I mean, I think, along with the idea of consistency in working on yourself. And that also means taking time off to recharge.
That's true. So having that time away, and just being able to recharge and get back into it. Like you said, Dr. Erin, having fun with what you're trying to do. Well, what are some things you do on a daily basis, Dr. Erin, in your business as well?
I am always looking for opportunities to connect with people. And we have such a fabulous entrepreneurial community here in Pensacola, Florida. It's not difficult to do. It's been very exciting and fun for me to connect with people outside of medicine and make new friends and bring the world of healthy nutrition to our community. But for me, it's all about making connections and making new friends and offering my services in various ways. And then for me, I manage stress by my workouts and playing with my dogs. We get out in nature, we have fun, we play, and that's it for me.
I love that. So always connecting with people. What advice would you give to someone who's starting in their entrepreneurial journey? Maybe who you were a couple years ago. What advice would you give them? Dr. Joanna, what advice would you give people?
I think just enjoy the ride. I mean, we've already talked about how you can't really make a mistake. And a lot of times you think that you made a mistake. And unlike in medicine, where, unfortunately something bad happens to a patient, sometimes down the road, you find out that that bad thing actually ended up being the best thing that ever happened to you. And you learned the most from that one situation. Or a different door opened that you never would have paid attention to if that bad thing had happened to you. So I think entrepreneurship for me is so much like living life. I think that's why for me, I love it so much. It's like everything that I learn in business, I can apply to my own personal life. And that is just like so eye-opening and so fun and so amazing if you are starting this journey and you're trying to decide, like, what could I do? It's like you get to learn so much more about who you are. And that is just like, it just makes my heart stop just thinking about like what an amazing journey you're about to start. So have fun.
Have fun. Enjoy the ride. Dr. Schramm, Dr. Rashmi, what is the advice you would have for somebody starting on their journey?
Ooh, I don't know. Y'all have given so many good advice things so far. I would really just say that coming back to yourself, staying grounded, and giving yourself permission not just to fail, but to also dream bigger than you could have ever imagined. I would say those might be some things that I really didn't learn at all as I went through medical school. It was my creativity was, I thought, very stifled. And ultimately, entrepreneurship at its core is creating something out of nothing. And when we can dream big, even if we don't reach the big goals, if we could just give ourselves permission to feel that, it can make a big difference for us as we're moving through.
I like that. Dream bigger, dream bigger. Dream.
And
Oh, what did you say?
well, I'll say, and we often overestimate what we can actually get done in a year, but we underestimate what we can get done in like a 5-year period, right? So you may not meet your income goal, your growth goal that you set for 1 year from now, but that doesn't mean in 5 years that you're not going to be like beyond your wildest imagination.
So true. So true. Any other advice? Oh, Dr. Aaron, any advice you would give to those who are just starting out in their entrepreneurial journey?
I would love to have people find mentors like I have mentors, because those people are so supportive, encouraging, they accept you for who you are with your strengths and blemishes and help you along and support you and guide you and give you new ideas as to how to become a better person, how to become a better business owner, and how to become a better physician. So it's all about finding the mentors.
Finding the mentors, finding the people that can help you get to that next step. Now, my last question is, why does somebody need to buy this book? Why is reading this book important?
I can go first, if that's okay. I think it's important for us to see what's possible, and I think it's also important for us to see that it's okay to make mistakes, because I think really for the most part, this book is more about mistakes than wins. Right. And by mistakes, I mean, what did we learn? What did we learn along the way? And so, of course, they were not mistakes or they were not failures, but what did we learn and how do we continue to learn? And I think that's what makes this book such a gem and so different than anything we have ever seen, right? A compilation of real life people who you could contact if you want to. We're real. Like, we're not, we didn't come from thin air. Dr. Una didn't make us up, and Dr. Alicia didn't make us up either. We are real people, and we are navigating in a very complicated, nuanced system. And we haven't, we're made for more, but I don't know that any one of us say we've already made it. So we're on our journey still.
That's true. You're always on a journey. So when you talked about mistakes, it reminded me of this quote that I saw today, which said, "A mistake that makes you humble is better than an achievement that makes you arrogant." So we need to make more mistakes so we can actually get better. Anybody else? Why should somebody buy this book? Why is this important?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different stories, and it just shows that you can come from any walk of life. You can be from whatever different specialty, whatever different background, that it's possible for like anyone, right? And I think that's what's so powerful about having so many stories in kind of one place.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We see everybody who they're from, because everybody's coming from different fields, different experiences, but they're still working into their entrepreneurship. So
And I wanted to say that I feel like this book is so important for whether you're in the camp, and a lot of people are, where maybe you're wondering to yourself, like, this isn't what I thought it would be. And I feel like there's more, and I'm made for more, and I want more in my life. And that's true. I mean, there's so many endless possibility to what you could do in this world. And whether you're thinking that right now in the back of your head, or whether you haven't even considered it, and maybe you're just going to walk by the store and you're going to see this book, or you're listening to us and you're thinking, "Oh, made for more. Like, what is that?" It's just that the endless possibility that you have to contribute in this world, and the amount of joy and growth and love that you get to experience just because you decided to imagine that maybe there was more out there for you, it's just so powerful. And I hate to think of people in this world who are good doctors who've spent so much time trying to get to where they are, and to think to themselves, like, this is it. And kind of living in this zombie world where you wake up and you're already anxious about the day, and you go through all the steps of your day, and then you get home and your family asks you, like, did you finish your work? And of course the answer is no. And then going to bed, feeling anxious about the next day, and maybe beating yourself up because Piggy's in the back of your head saying, like, you didn't do this right, and you didn't do this enough, and you didn't get to this. And that's just not a way that, especially physicians who like went into medicine because we wanted to help people, should live their lives. You're made for
Yeah.
more.
You're made for more. You're made for more. Dr. Erin, why should somebody buy this book?
Oh, well, I would echo what everyone else said, but I'd also like to throw in there that if there is someone out there who wants to talk to one of us, who has questions, we would all be open to talking to any physician who has questions about how to transition, what are their options, just reach out to us so we can help.
Oh, yeah, definitely. You're absolutely right. We definitely want to help. And speaking of that, would you mind kind of just sharing kind of how somebody can work with you? How can they find you with that being said? We can start with you, Dr. Mayfield.
So the name of my medical practice is Lifestyle Medicine, Wellness, and Recovery. And we have an 8-week coaching program where we do live interactive group work and then have an additional live cooking class so that we help people transition to whole food plant-based eating. We know that when people embrace this in earnest, that they have the potential to drop blood sugars in 72 hours and cholesterol 30 points in a month. So it's very powerful, it's very exciting, and we'd love to meet you.
Awesome. Dr. Rashmi, how can someone work with you?
First of all, I just want to give a huge shout out to Dr. Erin because she's downplaying how amazing her programs and her stuff is. I mean, she's one of the most fit humans I've ever seen, y'all. Like literally, if you've ever met her in real life, you're going to be blown away. And she's cooked with me before. We've cooked before. And the amount of knowledge and compassion and love that she has for plant-based, all the things, and especially her story, it's amazing. So please find her. I can't even she's amazing. So people can find me on my website. People can find me on my website, which is optimalwellnessmd.org. I'm also on social media and Instagram, Facebook. It's just Dr. Rashmi Schramm. I would love to connect with anyone. And really, I run group programs. I run private coaching programs, as you said, with meditation as well. I run some really entry-level meditation programs that are perfect for completely new beginners or people who already meditate, who want a group to meditate with. And so I'm constantly having new offers out there. So please come, be part of our community. And I'd love to work with anyone who's interested.
Awesome. All right. Dr. Moore, how can someone work with you?
I am at www.sheismoney.com and also on all the platforms under She Is Money. I have a membership society for ambitious women. It's called the So Money Society. And in that society, we create the lives that we love by mastering our own minds, really. And I don't do any private coaching in that field. I actually do private coaching only in the wealth management, wealth financial type arena. And what I do is it's basically a one-up from the society. And I teach women how to create money to complement the lives that they really love. And so join the society. It's the most amazing place ever. And if you're not ready, then follow me on social media.
Dr. Elisa, how can someone work with you?
So if you want to actually meet and set up a consultation call, you can go to my website, www.growyourwealthymindset.com. If you're not ready for that, get on my email list. You can do that on my website as well. follow me on social media. I most actively post on Facebook, just to my own personal page, but I also have an Instagram, which is at Grow Your Wealthy Mindset. And I'm on LinkedIn as well. So I also have the Grow Your Wealthy Mindset podcast, which really teaches a lot of concepts of both financial literacy as well as just the nitty gritties of personal finance and investing.
And my name is Dr. Alicia Shelley, and I have a podcast, Back on Track, Achieving Healthy Weight Loss, and of course the Thrive for Life Live. So feel free to connect at Dr. Shelley MD. And I want to thank all of the participants for participating in this special edition of Thrive for Life. I know you all have gained knowledge and encouragement from these ladies. I know I've been inspired, especially with not letting my mean girl out, evict her altogether. But most importantly, you have not purchased this book, The Made for More Physicians and Entrepreneurs Who Live Life and Practice Medicine on Their Own Terms. You can go to Amazon and purchase your copy today. We do Kindle, we have hard copies, soft copy. Definitely need to go. There are 47 inspiring chapters from phenomenal women who are living life and living it on their own terms, and they will leave you inspired, encouraged, and ready to do more. Thank you all so much for listening. Feel free to share this with somebody who needs to hear it.
So much, Dr. Shelley.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
We'll see you all next time.